Hi everybody, today in this video I'm going to be talking about how events from the past, whether it's good, it could be good or bad, how it can affect the present. But in this video it's about the not so good events that affect the present, the pain and suffering. Now why does that happen? Why does it affect the present? Now the natural response, we all do it, is the clinging, the holding on to it, holding on to that event, which is a memory from the past, holding on to it, the being attached to it that causes the pain and suffering. Like I said, we all do it. It's a natural response. That's what the human mind does. It holds on to it, it clings to it. The confusion, it causes the confusion. The mind is suffering, it causes, the mind is suffering with it, and how it affects you, how it makes you feel. Now it's mainly the holding, like I said, the holding on to it, the clinging around it. The mind, it's the craving around it. It's like being, like holding on to it, detached to it, that causes the suffering around it. So it's learning how to pull away. In this video is how to pull away from that suffering, to make it that little bit more easier to cope with in the present, and being a bit more mindful around it as well. Now it's not something that you can just do straight away. It's something that you have to practice and you have to learn, because of being like that, of that way of thinking, and how it's affected you for so long. It's not something that you can just naturally do straight away. You know, if it was that, it would be half the battle. It wouldn't be so much of a problem. So it's all about the added suffering that's already there. Now, even by learning to do that, you're still going to get the pain with it. It's not going to completely take away that pain, but you will learn, like when you practice, you will learn to take away that added suffering, which the added suffering causes more of the problem in the present, like the anger, the resentment, the blame of it, the blame around it. Now, if you're if you're in that way of thinking, if you're thinking like the anger, what does it do? The resentment, the blame, it just makes you feel worse. It's like a little problem, and say like you're overthinking it, it adds to it. It makes it into one big thing, something that is really hard to cope with. And that's what happens. The added to it, the added suffering, it makes it a little bit harder to deal with. So it's all about letting go of that, letting go of the levels, the bits that are added on top to enable you to make it easier for you to cope with. So it's all about putting away from that anger, the resentment around it, the blame, because with the blame, it's not, and also as well is learning to not take things personal, because it's not your fault. It's what the human mind does, how it affects and creates them added problems on top. It's like it's like learning as well not to believe everything your mind tells you, because that's what the human mind does. It creates like little stories, and if you believe everything that your mind tells you, you're just going to continue to suffer. So it's learning to pull away from that, learning the acceptance and not taking things so personally. Now, like I said, these things, they take time, they take practice. But the more you practice, the better you get at it. So it's learning to put away, like I said, from the hatred, the anger, the blame around it, and transforming into being more mindful around it. The compassion around it, being more like learning compassion. That's what you could get them up on YouTube, like mindfulness meditations. They do things for that, and that takes a bit of time. It takes practice. You just got to have the patience there in learning and practicing to do that. So it learns you to be like taking away all that hatred and be more compassionate, be a bit kinder. You start to feel a bit kinder within yourself, even feeling more positive, because all that added pain and suffering can add on feeling negative around it all. And that's why it affects your present. It's like being pulled away from the here and now, and with the pain and suffering, and being taken off back into that event. And the more it goes round and round in your head, and your mind is just getting confused with it all. The mind is suffering, but it's all about the healing process. With your practice, learning is a healing process. But eventually, like I said, it's not impossible to do. You've just got to have the patience, show a bit of compassion. You start to show a bit of compassion around it, being mindful, and help you focus a bit more on the present rather than being pulled away from that and taken off into that little story, because that's what happens. The past is just a story now. It's not actually going on, but because of how you're feeling, it makes you feel like it's actually still going on, because the mind is a bit confused. So it's learning to accept it, and accepting it is to realize as well that it's just a story. It's just all it is now is just a story. It's not actually going on now. So like I said, with the being mindful and being, and in the end, you will eventually start to feel a bit more compassion there, and it will be easier as well in the long run. The more, like I said, you have to practice it. You have to keep at it. And the more you do that, you do get better at doing it. And then eventually you can start to, it makes it that little bit easier. It will take off that added pain and suffering that causes the problems in the present. And it will just make it that little bit easier to cope with all that. So it's all about getting back into feeling positive again, and just realizing it's just a story, it's a memory in your mind, and realizing that's what the human mind does. It creates a bit of confusion there sometimes with suffering, and learning how to cope with it, learning how to stay in the present moment and being positive, being mindful. So it's worth, if you haven't tried any meditation or anything like that, it is hard, I will admit. It probably is. It can be hard at first to get into, but you start it gradual, just little steps. It's the same with your healing. Little steps. Don't push it. Rush it. Don't rush it. Do it naturally. Little steps at a time. And eventually, like I said, the more you're doing it, the easier we'll get to be able to cope with. It's all about learning to cope with it and maintain it. The past not so good memories. It's all about learning to cope with it that little bit easier without that added on. So like I said about the meditation, that is worth doing. Just, if you can get them up on YouTube, they do ones for that, like learning to like put away, show it, like compassion ones. It will be beneficial to do, it will help, but you've just got to do it step by step. And then, like I said, the more you do it, the more you'll start to feel a bit more positive within yourself and be able to like maintain your present, because it's the past sometimes that affects, like I said, the present, and holds you back a little bit, and it's a lot of the added, so it will just take away that added suffering away from it. So just like I said, just try a little bit of meditation and just see how it goes, but don't expect your results to be like feeling like, how can I explain it, a bit better straight away. Just prepare yourself to be patient and let it take its course, let it heal naturally, and you will find in time it will get better and easier to maintain and cope with. So I hope this video will be of some help to you. Please share this video, because our well-being, our mental health is really important. It's affecting people worldwide. A mental health issue is, it's quite a lot to it. It's quite serious how it affects people from day to day. Each individual is different with it all, but it's very important. Our mental health is very important. So please share this video. And I hope, like I said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and give us a like.